Welcome, everyone. This is Jim Spohr with ISSIP, the International Society of Service Innovation Professionals. It's my pleasure today to have our speaker, Haluk Demirkan, on. But before he gets started, I want to just remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded. If you don't want your picture, you can turn your camera off. Put questions and comments in the chat. Be sure to mute yourself so we don't have any crosstalk. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Christine Young, who's our ISSIP Ambassador Lead. This is Lunch and Learn in the ISSIP Ambassador Series, and Chris is also a distinguished engineer at IBM. And so, Christine, over to you.
Thank you, Jim. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to today's ISSIP's webinar. We're very honored to host Dr. Haluk Demirkan, professor at University of Washington and one of the leading authors of the Responsible Generative AI Framework. He is a global thought leader in digital transformation and service innovation with deep expertise in helping organizations use technology responsibly for impact. As the generative AI reshapes industry and society, the RGAF provides timely guidance on how to innovate responsibly, balancing our human values, business goals, and global impact. So in this session, Haluk will walk us through the framework, the 9 dimensions of it, and share the vision behind its creation and discuss how organizations can adopt it to ensure AI is transparent, accountable, sustainable, and human-centered. Over to you, Haluk.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Jim. And first, I like to start with thank you to both of you, Jim and Christine, for organizing this event, and ISSIP for inviting me to presentation. Again, hi everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for some of us. My name is Haluk Demirkan. I am currently a full professor at University of Washington, Tacoma. As Christine mentioned, my research and professional practice have been in digital innovation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, service science heavily. So I spent almost a year with Linux Foundation AI and data team group, and we worked on this responsible AI framework. So I will present 9 dimensions from this framework, but I also did a comprehensive research on how to apply some of these dimensions in our when we are designing or developing or deploying AI solutions. All right, I like to start with this. I'm sure some of you have seen some of these news messages in media. Like this was a recent one from Meta's experience, Meta AI experience, published on August 2025, about in period by stroke, a man fell Meta chatbot and thought that Meta chatbot is a significant other. Another one is actually a little older example from Google. Google chatbot had some issues, and Google actually lost about $100 billion on one day. Another example from NPR, that we have seen most of these lately. There are a lot of good AI solutions in the market, but there are also some we have been having some challenges and some problems. So why we should care? I mean, so why we should care about responsible Gen AI? And you know, we all know that generative AI can accelerate innovation. I mean, I've been seen in almost every organization using Gen AI solutions or developing Gen AI solutions for 2 primary purposes. One is how to increase efficiency, effectiveness, and productivity of the organization, like how employees can be more productive. That's one way of using Gen AI solutions. Other one is how I can automate, scale, and build robust environment for my customer use, right? 2 type of products usually have been growing in companies. So in this case, basically is, So, and then recent failures are happening internally in organizations or externally. Like if I'm developing a product, internal use, I mean, internal users might making the incorrect decisions. So how do we build these safe, ethical, sustainable, and also innovative, and also provide value to the users, right? So I have a quick question at the bottom. I have, what could go wrong if we ignore these practices? So I like you to think about this couple minutes. Like, I mean, I'm sure you have seen already some examples. So what type of things may go wrong? So for this one, we don't need to put it into the chat box, but I like you to just think generally. Um, so and and then I want to give you a little bit background. So this RGAF, Responsible GenAI Framework, basically has been led by the Responsible AI Workstream at the GenAI Commons as part of the Linux Data and AI group. So the purpose of this GenAI framework promotes that GenAI is designed, applied, used in ways that are ethical, fair, and beneficial to society and the users. And it also involves adhering regulations and guidelines. So how we developed it? We spent almost a year. We partnered with about 25 global experts. We completed extensive research about some failed GenAI solutions in the market, as much as we can learn and hear from. And I reviewed AI frameworks from almost 20 countries, including EU AI Act framework, NIST framework, Singapore AI, and China's AI development plan. But we basically found and then downloaded as many countries responsible or trusted AI type of frameworks. And then we also looked at as many companies' frameworks, because as you know, a lot of companies have some type of framework in context of responsibility or trust. Mostly these are the two titles heavily being used, such as ChatGPT, Amazon, Google, Facebook, IBM, Microsoft. And then we wanted to create some type of framework that will be inclusive of all these, inclusive of addressing all the, country-specific frameworks, plus the some regulations, plus what we learn from different companies, because they have a lot of resources and have been working in this field for a while. So as a result, we came up with the 9 dimensions. So in the next few minutes, what I will do is I will go through very high level, what are each of these 9 dimensions, and then I will spend time, what are some of the tools, techniques, and methods in the market you can use to deploy some of those dimensions in your AI development process. Because that's the part I personally spent significant amount of time how to do. Because we have been talking about what portion for some time, but one of the main challenges is, okay, we understand we need to develop a responsible Gen AI, but how to do. So that's the part I would like to spend more time on today. So when I share the screen, just an FYI, I don't see a chat box. So if you have any questions, comments, please stop me. We can make it in a discussion forum. That will be fine. So I'm not able to read the chat box for any questions or comments when I share the screen, just an FYI. So these are the 9 dimensions. Basically, like I said, after spending almost 12 months, we came up with these 9 dimensions. That's almost inclusive of almost every other framework we have seen in the literature. So it starts with the human-centered, and there's no any specific priority. The high-level idea is depends on it's like a time and space complexity. Basically, depends on the organization, depends on the solution we are developing, and also depends on the use case. Each of these dimensions may have a higher weight in our analysis, right? I cannot say they all have to be perfect, but again, depends on time, space, user, and the use case. Each of them will have a different type of weight when we are developing. Because if we are trying to hit 100% accuracy for all these dimensions, we may not be able to develop the solution and put the product to the market on time. That is the challenge, right? Like, we don't want to be in the innovation dilemma situation. So it starts with the human center. We all heard about what is the human in the loop, and why GenAI solutions should be human centered and aligned. Because hopefully, 90% of 95% of these users are humans, right? It needs to partner with humans. Because there might be a time my manager or my coworker might be a Gen AI solution, right? I probably wouldn't care as long as I can get my job done. And if it excites me doing that job, I wouldn't mind to partner with Gen AI, or my manager becomes a Gen AI, or my employee, my team member Gen AI. But it needs to really collaborate and work with me closely. So at the bottom of this slide, I have some examples I pulled how we can, what type of frameworks or tools and techniques we can pull from literature. Most of them are open source, available at the internet, methodologies we can use to evaluate the AI solution we are developing as a human-centered, like value sensitivity design, analysis, or user feedbacks, or a type of A/B testing if and when we can do it. Or there are also some methodologies in context of transformer reinforcement learning if we are building a transformer solution. These are some of the examples. My next one is about accessibility and inclusive. So this one is, it needs to be accessible and inclusive. Uh, so I was actually at a meeting with a couple colleagues yesterday, and one of my colleagues said, hey, if I'm building a product, web-based product, it shouldn't require a tutorial to use it. It should be so well designed and developed today in a mobile app or in a web-based product. Those are the two we use heavily these days to give access to the user. It shouldn't require a manual how, right? So we are actually using some web apps or mobile apps. They don't require a tutorial. I open the app and I immediately, in like 5 seconds, I can figure out what to do and use it. This is about accessibility and being inclusive, any type of users. So in this case, it should be able to address diverse users and ability needs, right? And then it should give equitable access for my customers. Again, for my customers or my users, I say. So, but I have a quick question. If I'm using this Gen AI solution or developing or utilizing, who should be accountable when AI makes a mistake? Is the organization put that product to the market, or the user, or who owns it, right? So I would like to give you like 2 minutes, if you don't mind, put your answer to your chat box. Does that sound good? So I will hold it. I'm watching the clock. So I will give you 2 minutes. Who should be accountable? Owner who paid the money and purchased this AI solution, or the company who developed it, or the internet provider who gives that access to? There's so many stakeholders in a Gen AI type of solution development. This is coming up quite a bit these days, and and there's no perfect answer currently. All right. Jim, do you mind if I cannot see the chat box? Would you mind to read some of those?
Sure.
Or Christine, if you don't mind.
I'll go ahead because I started, but the one first answer was the organization who developed the product, question mark. Christine said the company that provides the product. So Christine agreed with that. And I put in depends on regulations and conditions of use. Whoever
Yeah.
owns the IP, someone else added. So yeah, different answers coming in, Haluk.
Right. It should be, right? It's really no perfect answer. Because think about it, if I bought let's say I bought a Gen AI solution like iRobot type of solution. I don't mean to market and advertise in a product, and then use it in a rental home, and it gives a damage to the house, right? Is the fault is the robot? Is the fault is the me? right? So many things. It gets a little messy actually, figure it out. Anyway, so in this slide at the bottom, again, as an example, I provided some standards interfaces and some different data sets that can be used to test and evaluate accessibility and inclusiveness. So the next one is about robust, reliable, and safe. So in technology, we talk about robust solution, right? Or reliable solution quite a bit. Again, it is about consistently perform intended use functions safely, dependably, right, and unpredictable environment. So we need to be able to figure it out. What are some unpredictable situations this solution will do the job it's supposed to do, right? So in that context, we need to build some safeguards in these AI solutions. I was reading an article last week, and this article talks about how many people today using some GenAI solutions as a counselor. Basically, instead of going to a doctor, spending hours on a couch and spending time with that doctor or psychiatrist or psychologist, some people are using GenAI solution to get advice. I was like, oh my God, this is so scary because most of these AI solutions are not being certified or educated specifically to give the counseling, advices. So in that case, we may need to build some safeguards to not answer those type of questions, right? I'm just throwing an example. Again, in this case, I have some tools, techniques. I will have a different presentation in the future, maybe show some of these examples, how to do it, but I just put a laundry list of different tools in the market. Again, they are pretty free to download and use. We can utilize to test and evaluate in context of reliability and safety of the AI solution. Next one, talking about transparency and explainability. I think this is another very difficult one because most GenAI solutions works like a black box, right? Because when you think about it, there's a transformer model. They are being trained with billions of records. And then in the front side, there's a child kind of, like a post-developed GenAI solution on top of a transformer model. Again, utilized a lot of data sets, a lot of models, very advanced models. And then we are saying, oh, this AI solution needs to be explainable. What I found out is in my machine learning AI background is that whenever the accuracy gets higher, explainability gets lower. Because in order to have a higher prediction, higher confidence prediction and accuracy, much better accuracy, it means I need to use more complex models behind the scene. And whenever there's more complex models behind the scene, it gets less explainable. But if I want to have a higher explainability, in most cases, if I use a very simple ML model behind the scene, it is very explainable. So how is the balancing this out, right? That gets really challenging. So in that context, I put some methodology, mostly coming from machine learning science, ML science world, how we can use to explain the output of these models. It really comes up to the metrics and measures, right? We also need to be able to evaluate, measure it, evaluate, and improve how explainable this model is, right? Again, it really depends on the type of solution we are developing. In that case, I have another question. How do we balance innovation speed with responsibility? Again, when the responsibility goes up, innovation speed might go slow, right? Vice versa. Time to market versus the building something more responsible. For the time being, I would like to continue so we can come back to this question later on. All right, next one talks about accountability. This really ties to the one of the, the question we had earlier, right? So what should be the accountability? So again, in this case, there are really three major items. Who's accountable? To whom? And then accountable for what? And how to accountable and rectify. So what type of audit trails and then error rectification mechanisms we can set up so we can measure, manage, evaluate, improve this accountability, right? In this case, I found some examples from literature, like IBM has some AI fact sheets, Google has model cars, Amazon also have items for service cars. And when you Google it, or when you search at the internet, you can get some examples in those contexts. Again, this also gets into the user feedback loops and grievance mechanisms. And more, some of the GenAI solutions we are seeing in the market have some type of user feedback mechanism, because user feedback mechanisms is one of the very useful information we can capture and then evaluate the accuracy and also accountability of the solution. All right, next one is being secure and private.
Haluk,
I think this gets a little challenging too, right? I'm
we have,
sorry, there's a comment, question?
sorry, I should turn on my video too. So just on that accountability one, Terry earlier had talked about possibly having an insurance company to help with rectification. So I just wanted to insert that Terry mentioned that.
Actually, that might be another business model, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
You're right. Insurance companies, maybe that's the way insurance companies came to market, right? When we see some different, I guess you're right. It's insurance companies are kind of type of risk management, right? So in this case, we are talking about risk and how to manage the risk from GenAI for again, the person accountable versus to whom, and what, and rectification process. Yeah, accountable. That makes sense. That will be interesting, actually. So next one is talking about privacy and security. Privacy about basically, privacy of the individuals, or provide means to mitigate ethical and legal implications, right? And then and differential privacy and federated learning techniques, because privacy, I think, there are more and more regulations coming up in context of privacy of the data, right? And then security is another case. If we in the process of ensuring the security of the data systems from various threats. I mean, most GenAI solutions, especially if there are free ones, if any of us are using a free version of GenAI solution in the market, these organizations already say that they capture my questions, they capture my responses, and use as part of to train the models to the next question by someone else. So if it is capturing every single interaction I do with this product, I don't want that interaction to be public, right? In that case, it needs to be very secure. And then privacy gets little, is a challenge, right? Another challenge, because I'm actually doing some research, and in my research, I'm using a lot of synthetic data to develop this GenAI solution. But when I use a synthetic data, it's perfect, right? It's lots of privacy. But the problem is how close to the human my synthetic data is just the data I generate. I might be able to use synthetic data to test format and functionality of the product I'm developing, but my accuracy of the answers will go down if I use a synthetic data in my training set, right? As if I want as accurate prediction with the GenAI solution and as accurate answer to a question or the interaction by a user, I need to use as real data possible. But what's the balance? Again, in this case, I provided some examples. There's adversarial prompt defenses or federal learning concepts. Especially this federated learning is growing quite a bit in our industry in context of, providing a privacy, security, and also train these models, basically decentralized or distributed or federated training concepts, capturing and then training the concepts, but not moving the data from one location to other. Compliance is a big one. I think this is another big one. If you notice, I was keep saying each of them very big and important. Like 9 of them are all important, but how important for the use case, right? I think almost different companies, I think almost every company has some type of compliance processes internally. And also almost every country, state in the United States, they are creating a type of compliance processes, but still, I don't think there's any centralized certification process or product in the market for this compliance specific to GenAI solutions. Okay, it's about legal, ethical, regulatory, and standards. And my personal experience is that usually the development of regulations takes time. I think today technology, the evolution of technology and evolution of GenAI development processes are much, much, much faster than the speed of developing these regulations and compliance. And we will have some challenges, right? We might be able to learn from our mistakes, I guess. And then those mistakes will become input to the compliance or regulations. So in this case, I provided a couple examples. I think NIST, specific to NIST, the OECD and NIST has really good examples in context of risk management and then specific to the GenAI. I know EU also has a EU AI Act and GDPR in context of data privacy. But these are some challenging issues to address by all of us. So next one gets into the ethical and being fair and unbiased. I think especially in the world of machine learning science, ML science, and optimization, operation research science, a lot of science areas, we talk about being biased or unbiased. Like, is the model is biased or unbiased? Is the data, is the way we design the product is biased, or the interface is biased or unbiased, right? This really gets into the how we can align with moral principles and societal values. And by ethical fair is also overlapping with accessibility, right? I might create a beautiful product, but my UI is more accessible to the certain type of customers or vice versa. So, and then these are some of the tools I noticed. There's some toolkits in the market. I know IBM has this AI Fairness 360 evaluation methodology. Microsoft and some Google's even have some what if type of tools. This is we need to use some more science basically to evaluate these, right? And then there are some different techniques in context of it really comes up. If we really get into the concept of the GenAI solutions response to a question by a user, it really gets into the data and training primarily. All right. Next one is this is the last one. This is the 9th dimension. Hopefully I didn't go too fast. Environmentally sustainable. So sustainability of because I read an article at one point, they were talking about how much power factories are using to generate batteries, to make a battery for electric cars. So there's a really interesting controversy about that. How much, we are talking about electric cars, for example, is environmentally sustainable. But on the other side, the other argument was how much energy is being spent, how much space have been used to make or build batteries for electric cars. Similar, when you really think about it, the amount of hardware, software, and memory capacity have been used. Internet, energy has been used. I mean, today we cannot use a computer if we don't have electricity. So all these computers needs at least electricity to run, right? So this is another one. Some companies working on, some organizations working on, like track carbon emissions of different ML workloads. How can we define some metrics measures and evaluate carbon use, carbon and energy footprint of these AI solutions? I mean, certain things we can do without using GenAI. I mean, I can give one example with a couple of colleagues. We developed a GenAI solution to basically do some math analysis and then provide reasonable explanations from a content. So what we discovered is when we use GenAI for some simple math, it uses a lot of tokens. It actually gets pretty expensive. And then that was the first phase one. We did full solution. We developed the solution fully by using a GenAI. First phase to the math analysis. Second phase providing a reasoning from the content. That's the phase one. And then phase two, we said, hey, how about we just use a basic Python to do math analysis and then save the results and then use those results for only reasoning that will be pulled by the GenAI solution. Oh my God, the token transactions and the cost of the whole thing went down almost 1/10 in my example. So we need to think about those type of things. How can I basically use the GenAI for the specific purpose? Yes, we can use it for a lot of things, but does it really need it, right? Maybe if we don't need to use a GenAI, then we use some other methods that will actually keep the cost down, keep the energy and footprint down. Just a thought. There's no perfect. So overall, there are 9 dimensions. And then how we can do it, right? I provided some examples and tools at the bottom of each of those 9 dimensions. But how is this still a difficult thing? Like, how do I define the weights each of those 9 dimensions? What should be the weight, importance? And how do I measure it? How do I validate? When to do it? So I came up a very simple process diagram. This is something I came up last night. So this is like, if I think about, there are 5 major phases of developing a GenAI solution. It's like a discover is pretty well known. It's more like a business use case or requirements. Design phase. Develop is basically, pulling the data, harnessing the data, machine ML models, all the different methods, and deploy and maintain. So as you noticed, for each of these phases, I mapped out the weight or importance, like we need to think about, because it is really hard to do all 9 dimensions every phase. That will take a lot of time. But if we at least concentrate different dimension at the different phase, I can spend a little bit of less time, right? So I'm trying to basically balance responsibility with innovation of the, speed of innovation. So discovers phase, based on my research, human-centered and accessibility have a higher weight. So those two I can spend more time. Design gets into the ethical, fairness, transparency, explainability. Because design phase, I really need to think about explainability. Also goes about efficacy, right? Like during the design phase, I also need to think about, hey, how am I going to measure and evaluate accuracy of my output? That is one of the things most of us are not spending a lot of time. Like, yes, GenAI is generating a solution. It works really good functionally, but the output, what is the confidence rate for the output of the GenAI solution. So those are the things I need to think about in design phase. What will be my success measure? Is the 80% predictable? Is 80% accuracy is good? Is the 60%, 70, 90? I don't know. It really depends on the solution we develop. And then again, in develop phase, my suggestion was heavily spend time on privacy security, because develop phase, we have a lot of data, right? We play with. Again, we also even need to think about who needs to have access to that data, right? And then deploy, compliance, accountability, rectifiability, and then maintain. Again, some of those we may need to repeat in context of when we are maintaining, how can I maintain this as efficiently possible? Another thing, another guideline I have or suggestion I have is that, because we have quite a bit GenAI experts in this presentation, is we need to expect the unexpected, right? Again, there are some videos actually at internet. I can spend 10 minutes learning and I can pop up and create a simple GenAI solution just by using APIs. Yeah, but again, what might go right or what might go wrong? We need to expect the unexpected. In that case, my suggestion is it's a type of risk analysis, right? So when we are developing a GenAI solution, it's really managing the risk, which comes up to maybe Terry's insurance. Actually, I put that as one of the other solution maybe or suggestion. So NIST has a really good framework about risk management, risk of AI system. These are some standardization frameworks. They are building these risk management processes, ISO 4200, ISO 2300894, or NIST, and then EU Act. And then I put this as a very, very simple open source content about risk management. We all heard about risk management, in context of project management for many years. It's about measure of an event's probability of occurring, and then what might be the impact of that risk if that happens, right? Because we buy a car insurance to be able to manage if I have an accident, right? But if I don't have an accident, then the money I spend for the insurance is gone, right? So this is kind of NIST framework. They kind of came up with this 5x5 measurement concept. Basically, likelihood of something might be happening, and severity, basically extreme, basically severity of that issue. And I'm actually working on another research concept about this. So each of those 9 dimensions, what are the type of questions I can ask specifically, and then use those questions to evaluate basically each dimension. So I'm kind of coming towards the end a little bit, so we will have some time to discussion. Some of you might be thinking, okay, all sounds good. We all want to have a great, excellent, responsible AI, but it's going to take some time. That is true. My experience is it may slow us down at the beginning, but it is, I mean, I have a very strong project management background. Um, when I managed the projects in the past, everybody thought doing a basic risk management for project is a kind of waste. A lot of people thought that way. In my experience, that's one of the things leadership wanted to cut down the effort estimates for. But what I found out is we can do this in a very, very simple way. So I can literally do a risk management for a project in my mind, just even spending a 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be a 15 hours effort, right? We can start with the slow, very high level thinking process. Maybe initially I can have 5 questions to do risk management for each of those dimensions, or maybe 3 questions. Then next time I use 10 questions. Next time I use 15 questions. We kind of learn ourselves from the mistakes, right? So we all know it's about trust. I think GenAI, I think one of the biggest challenge today is building a trust. Somebody asked me last week, hey, Haluk, will you buy a driverless car? It's about trust, right? And also trust to the customers, regulators, partners. Next one is trust translates to adoption. I mean, most of us are in a heavy technology world, right? My experience is I define a success of a technology-enabled project is based on adoption and utilization, not based on development of that product according to the budget and timeline. Yes, we can develop a product with technology within the budget, within the resources, by the deadline, which doesn't happen a lot. But if nobody uses it, is it really, if nobody adopts that solution, is it a success? Probably not. So uh, again, responsibility about trust translates to adoption, right? And then adoption, it's like it kind of circular effects. As many people adopt and use it, as much we can learn and we can improve for the next one, right? That's the idea. And then we can also comply with regulations because these regulations gonna grow every day, in my opinion. And then it's about scaling easier and safer. It's building on a solid foundations instead of a shaky ground. And I really think building the solution in a solid foundation makes it easier. Again, at the beginning, the learning, because of the new learnings, it may take extra time, but after a few examples, we can be more practical. So I don't know if you heard this. MIT has a report. It says it published, this report was published on, I'm sharing the report with you. They did a very long analysis and research, and they said, 95% of Gen AI pilots are failing. There's a success rate is 5% right now. And there are so many reasons. And the primary reason is, in my opinion, is the adoption and trust, which how we can develop this. So bottom line is this, basically. These are a couple images I drew with thanks to Gen AI about the shaky ground, right? It isn't a cost center, in my opinion. It's not much different than a cybersecurity 20, 15, 30 years ago, right? I mean, 20 years ago, the organizations who thought cybersecurity is an optional thing, I don't think we see them much around. It just has to be, right? It is part of it. So we need to embrace responsibility to be developed faster, safer, with more trust. Otherwise, we may end up cleaning up some crisis. Okay, in this case, basically, which side we want to be on? The building a foundation on a strong, or have a building the solution with a shaky ground. This is some of my continuous research areas. I'm working with also Dr. Jim Sporer about the Digital Twin project. The second one is my continuous research about really defining the metrics, measures, and evaluate and building some type of Excel spreadsheet, practical Excel spreadsheet for this risk assessment process that can be deployed in early design phase versus pre-launch versus post-launches. The third one is some area Jim and I have been collaborating for a very long time about how to develop this collaborative intelligence, like using the strengths of people, strengths of AI, and of course processes. I mean, some of the literature, I don't hear much about process because Gen AI is about changing a process, workflows. Any technology solution is actually changing how people do things, all right? In daily life or work, either way. In my fourth area, I'm heavily passionate about metrics. As a scientist, working on different metrics measures to evaluate LLM solutions. Again, accuracy, of course, accuracy of the LLM solution is very important in my mind, prediction accuracy. And then these are some samples of metrics measures. Just let me know for additional information. I will be very happy to share. And this is my contact information. And any questions, comments? We have about 10 minutes if there are any questions, comments to discussion-wise.
Yeah, there's quite a few in the chat, and
Hopefully I didn't go too fast, but I wanted to.
did you want to organize them, Christine? Or
I
think
haven't read all of them yet.
Yeah, Steve Alter had several. Steve, do you want to come off mute and just describe it yourself? You had several comments.
I will also open the chat.
Are we able to speak? I can get him off mute.
Let me just say that I thought that the framework was really quite good and had addressed a lot of very important issues, and it was well organized and so on. Then the challenge is really understanding how it applies to specific examples,
right,
as opposed to talking about it in general. And it's possible to continue the general discussion, but like I put in the example of a robo doctor. And let's say our robo-doctor says that actually you should take Tylenol during pregnancy if you need it. Well, actually, the government just came out, or some spokespeople for the government came out and said no. Well, like, that's a specific example. What do we do about that? What, if someone's developing a robo-doctor, or what would we do if the robo-doctor has some specific advice about whether you should take COVID vaccines or not, and the government comes up with something else? And then, I mean, that's a really easy case, but the issue is, how can these ideas be used to applied to real examples in a way that's genuinely useful? And I think that's the challenge here.
Right. And I think it comes up to the trust. Like if I will think about, let's say I don't know either of them. Let's say one government official made that comment versus the robot doctor. Neither of them, I don't have any direct contact or connection. I think about which one I trust. Okay, then I will think about why I trust. Like why I should trust this thing versus this opinion versus this one. And then in that trust case, in my mind as a user, or right, I will ask questions. Okay, what will help me to build that trust? Like I will think about, okay, how many test cases, how many numbers, how many, I'm just thinking about, but everybody has a different way of trust.
You're thinking about it as a very sophisticated expert. Imagine that you're a 15-year-old who's trying to use a robo psychiatrist or counselor or something, and walking down a path that's leading in some very dangerous directions.
Right.
Okay. That kid is not going to be asking really clear questions about trust. And so like, how would this apply to that? I don't think it can give an answer right now, but I think that's really the important question.
I was honestly thinking this, the reason I go to psychiatrist, because I think that psychiatrist is trained, certified person, right? I don't just go to the random person on the street to ask psychiatry advices, right? But in that context, I think that developing the GenAI, that solution, that really responsible goes to the developing that GenAI company organization. Like basically, we don't have a certified GenAI solution who are certifiable or credible to provide that psychiatry help. Make sense? So like that 15 years old kid example, GenAI solution shouldn't have give that answers.
Yeah.
In my opinion. GenAI solution, because it's a generic GenAI solution. If somebody asks about, hey, about psychology advice, GenAI solution should be responded back saying, hey, you need to contact this phone number or this person or this place to get help or get advice. That's my opinion. But 5 years, 10 years from now, we may have a maybe certified, trained, specifically certified, educated counselor GenAI solution. We may. I don't know. Right. But
Yeah,
anybody
but
else
only
have any opinion? Yeah, please.
yeah, look, I agree, but on the other hand, I think the government also should establish regulations, to really regulate this industry very heavily, especially like the legal, the medical, healthcare, right? Those industries and finance industries very, very heavily. So and also I think even let's say if you ask a human expert, there's often no black and white type of answers because it really depends on the specific use case, specific patient, specific client. So oftentimes like even for human experts, SMEs, right, subject matter experts. We wouldn't have the answer, okay, or only one answer, correct answer, right? So I think that really is the complexity that we're seeing unfolding while we are developing for some of us and also using, the AI, right?
Yeah, lots of things, great, Steve. I think
Yeah, it's a great
we
point.
are still learning. But I personally think there will be more certified or accredited or type of GenAI, specific GenAI, that specific solutions in the market, I think.
If you look at the universities right now, do you think there's accredited knowledge about interpersonal relations that anybody could agree on?
I don't know what to say.
Okay. I'm using that example because you're hoping that 10 years from now we will have accredited capabilities for some things. There are an awful lot of very important things that are going on in universities where there's no agreement about what's the right thing to say or do.
Yeah. Yeah. There will be different opinions, like you said, even for the universities, right?
Mhm.
Right. I totally agree with you, Steve. We see human, value conflicts all the time, right? So then let's say if this framework is really focused on this human-centric AI or human-centered AI, right? So then, because our human is such a complex beast, well, we ourselves oftentimes don't agree with ourselves, right? Let alone with others. So then, like how would AI as a technology to be human-centered, right? To adopt this human-centered kind of a view. Maybe that's a question.
Mhm.
I mean, again, I don't think we have an answer, but maybe just any opinions, any
We have
any thoughts.
we have 7 minutes left, and I noticed that James has a question, and I believe Brad may because he came.
Yeah.
Yes, I do have a
So,
question.
To the
James,
camera. Yes, please.
Hi, sorry, I'm actually here in Frankfurt, so I'm in the lounge, so there's a little bit of
Oh,
background noise in
it's a little
Lufthansa.
bit late for you, but thank you.
No, it's dinner time, so I'm still eating a little bit. But I really wanted to ask, I met with a friend of mine who works for the EU's, so this $400 million fund that the EU Innovation Council has funded to help with the energy transition more broadly. And as Jim knows, I've worked transatlantically between the EU and the US. And as I've written, I mean, I'm very concerned with the ethical dimensions of, rail, but, responsible AI, all the aspects of it, but especially beyond just the normal questions of ethics and health or finance, but also energy as a critical dimension. Because
Yes.
what seems to be happening is a lot of these hyperscalers or even energy companies are in bed with hyperscalers in countries where there's not a lot of renewable access to renewable development of renewables, money that can go towards things like fusion energy or fusion research. And they're not really thinking about that dimension of it. And they're housing a lot of data centers there that are more or less what we would call dirty, right? Fossil fuel based and fossil fuel powered. My question is, how do we address that, or can that be subsumed under the sort of ethical pillar, or is that like an overlap of the energy and ethics question? And what are your thoughts on that? Or have you heard about these sorts of projects? I mean, my friend is from Colombia originally, so he's Colombian Spanish, but living in Germany, and was telling me how large companies, including hyperscales, have courted, these sort of, I don't want to say developing markets because they're, middle income markets and developing markets. And that's something that I think is very, very, I don't know, interesting. I thought maybe you don't want to comment on it, especially against the backdrop of sovereign AI, which is a huge topic right now. And countries wanting to enable their own sort of LLMs, but also to power it themselves. But the wherewithal is not there in a completely renewable way. And so that's kind of my concern. And I thought I just wanted to impart that or ask for question, comment from you.
Yeah, I mean, I can start, but anybody else, would you like to start? I wanted to make sure I don't want to be the only one talking, but if anyone has any comment, or I can. All right. So, I mean, my experience is, I think in context of energy, sustainable energy, a lot of companies have some type of innovation going on, just specific to energy, sustainable energy context. Because I think I mean, I personally haven't really have the experience on projects about that sovereign, like how to utilize Gen AI to generate energy and also Gen AI solution in the country. But uh, I, I 100% agree. There's an ethical dimension, also sustainable dimension. There are countries in the world right now, they don't have a power. And then on the other side of the world, we are talking about using a Gen AI solution, gonna use who knows how much energy to power even these solutions, right? It's
Mm.
just a,
But even
I
in the first
honestly
world,
don't have a perfect answer, to be honest.
yeah. An additional thing I wanted to say is, although I just brought up a lot of middle income countries issues, and maybe even then further developing, in the first world, what we've seen is that the power purchasing agreements that hyperscalers and other large companies
Right,
that are data centers online are negotiating with it they make their contracts every few months with these large energy providers. And essentially customers in certain markets, I think there was a report that was just released in Ohio and in other states, their kilowatt hour prices have gone up because the
right,
customers have to pay the difference that the energy providers, the utilities are giving a rebate in the PPAs to these large hyperscalers so that they can close a big multi-billion-dollar multi-year contract. But that funding gap is then just paid because they 2x or 1.5x the costs per kilowatt hour for their normal domestic
normal, right,
utility customers. And so even in the first world, we stand to lose if there's not a lot of sort of regulation brought around. I mean, we can't rely on them
right,
building ethical models. Ethical models is, I guess, what we're talking about here, but I'm talking about ethics and actual deployment of the models and in the whole energy uh, um,
right.
backdrop
I,
that
I, and
powers
I,
it.
yeah, and I honestly think we are so behind on this ethic and sustainable concept overall in the technology because sometimes I wonder where all the waste is going from technology waste. I don't know, right? Like I think overall we as a society we are so behind in some of those topics. I mean, because I think we have a really big problem not just even specifically Gen AI, it's just overall information technology world, right? I don't see waste of, that technology in front of my street, but it is going somewhere. But where it is going, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just posted the New York Times article that I was
Perfect,
referencing.
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, where people in the States are now also then seeing 1.5x, 2x kilowatt hour prices because of the utilities have already guaranteed PPAs to large hyperscalers and data centers. And it's just something that it really brought it home to me that this energy issue extends beyond ensuring renewable, ensuring that models are having these parameters that you spoke about. I think that's crazy interesting. So sorry to speak so much.
And it's
people.
going to go up also. You're right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
We're actually
Hi, Brad.
We're at the
We
end of
have
our
like,
but we can run over just a little bit, I suppose. And if people have things like James, thanks for sharing that New York Times thing. If people have things to share, please put them in the chat. And Steve Kwan said, let's make sure we get those things into the
into the notes. Yeah.
So we'll do that. But Brad, can you be brief, and then we'll ask Christine to wrap us up. And Christine,
that.
okay, for a few minutes? Okay.
Yep.
So if you can be brief, we'd appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you again, Haluk, for such an informative session and great discussion here. I guess I have more of a comment than a question, if that's okay.
Of course.
I'm observing a correlationship between AI and the world of work and projects in other spaces, right? So if you think about it, when we progress into a new way of doing things, better, faster, quicker, if it's completely brand new, sometimes we don't have perceptiveness of all the risks that are involved in what it is that we're doing.
Yeah.
And so when we're doing something new, based on subject matter expertise, perspectives available at the table, there might be certain risks that we can predict, and there are certain risks that we can say, yeah, we recognize these as risks and we should manage against that because they're very clear. But then if I look at the world of work, and for example, if you look at occupational health and safety, which is the world that I live in, you see that the regulation comes in after the oh my God moment, right?
Yeah.
So, we didn't realize that that was an actual risk.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm seeing. But when I think about AI, what's very clear is the use of narrow AI, like using AI to solve specific problems, and then focusing on narrow AI, and then overall Gen AI might be a very interesting thing. I'm sorry, I'm trying to talk a
No,
little
that's
low
fine.
because,
That's okay.
but that's a little bit what I'm seeing as a
Yeah,
correlation.
I agree.
Hopefully that's
We kind of
helpful.
learn from mistakes, and then those become part of the regulations usually. Yeah.
Right.
All
Right.
right. Christine, would
Okay.
you like to wrap it up? Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Haluk, for sharing your
Thanks.
insights on the Responsible Generative AI Framework. And thank you all for joining us. I counted, I think there were 22 of us at one point. So we hope today's conversation serves as a food for thought and inspires you to think critically about how we can shape generative AI for the great good. So that's it for today. Thank you again, and see you next time.
Next time. Thank you, Christine. Thanks, Jim, for organizing again. Appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.